it's a really interesting thing because you take authenticity and you just in a vacuum with one
Mm-hmm.
person, right? And it's like, okay, I want to live authentically for me, right? I can, maybe I don't know exactly what that looks like right now, but if I think about it and plan it out and I'm
Mm-hmm.
intentional about it, I can probably figure out what that looks like and what things I want to do, what experiences I want to have, what kinds of, how I want to spend my time.
Mm-hmm.
Then you throw another person in there, right? You throw a partner or a friend or whatever in there. And I think that's where you kind of get to the point where it's like, okay, well, what is authenticity for the two of us together as a unit, right? And it's not necessarily one person imposing their will on the other person, obviously, right? Because then that person's not living authentically. But at the same time, what's the line between authenticity and growth, right? Where's the point where you're like, okay, you know what? I'm gonna push myself to my comfort zone to grow. At the same time, I'm not pushing myself to be not me, right? Like, how do I define myself? What's your identity like?
Mm-hmm.
And it's an interesting debate that people tend to have, and I feel like the why is what makes a distinction here. Like, why are you doing what you're doing? Why are you willing to make this step outside your comfort zone, right? Are you doing it for you? Are you doing it for someone else? Are you doing it purely for them, or do you have any interest at all, right? And that's what I think kind of an interesting debate. Right? We tend to think we have to compromise at every level for the people that matter to us in our lives, right? We try to say we have to like everything, right, together. We can't have
Yes.
anything separate. We have to compromise on everything. Everything has to be done together, no matter what, right? Even if you
Mm-hmm.
hate doing something, we have to make it work. And if I hate something, we have to make it work because that's what compromise is. And that's just not the case, like our differences make us individuals, right? And then that makes things more interesting. And some people are not willing to have those same experiences that we're all willing to have. The love us, So, and that's on the flip side, there may be things he wants to do that you don't necessarily want to do as well,
Yes,
right?
football watching or any kind of TV watching. Let me just add that.
Well, yeah, we know you're not a fan of TV. We know that that's abundantly clear. I mean, I think the important thing is just where it's like, you can complement each other, right? Where it matters, and it's really like enriching each other's experiences, right? Adding that extra dimension to things, to that experience with the other person, and it's like, that I think that's where real strong connections come from, is where you can appreciate and elevate experiences
Mm-hmm.
because you're together, but then you also have your separate lives, because at the end of the day, like, everything you're not attached at the hip, right? It's actually not healthy to be couple wise, to be with someone every single second of every single day all the time. That's called codependence. It's not a good thing, like, it's unhealthy. But to your earlier thing, like, if folks do have these things where they talk and get into these conversations and they end up becoming conflicts of some sort, no matter how little or large, you know, it's something where you can be realigned sometimes, and it might help to bring in a professional like a therapist or a counselor or a coach or whatever. But it's not like you're having seeing someone like that in those kind of professionals takes away from your experience. It doesn't mean it's not a bad thing. I think there's a stigma associated with that. It's getting less and less over the years as we mature as a society, and I use that word
Mm-hmm.
very loosely after the last year. But as we mature around things like mental health and stigma around that, I think that the stigma is going away slowly, but it's still there, especially for
Yeah.
certain communities like this South Asian community. Um, the idea of
I
mental
think
health.
lots of communities fall into that category.
Yeah, it's frustrating because there's really a lot of, I mean, like, I'll be upfront. Like, when I went to law school, I had a huge problem adjusting to that, right? Because my
Mm-hmm.
life is I'm like you in the sense of I love adventure, I like all kinds of different experiences, right? And doing different things and having different kinds of interests that I pursue, right? Like, there was no 2 days that were the same in college for me.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I went to class most of the time, and when I didn't go to class, I was doing stuff with my friends, or I was like experiencing different things, or like playing different sports, and then I go to law school and I have to focus on just law school. That takes up all my time, and that was a huge adjustment for me. And I went through a really tough time, and thankfully the University Counseling Center had that available available offer for students to get counseling for free, and I took advantage of it. I lucked out because I didn't realize how much I had lucked out, because I got an amazing counselor, and she was phenomenal. I had her for the rest of my entire law school career until I graduated. Fast forward a couple of years when I was dealing with a lot of stuff in my divorce, right? And you have this difficulty in finding real quality therapists or real quality counselors. There are a lot of shitty ones out there, just like coaches, right? There are a lot of shitty coaches out there, right? And there's a lot of shitty car salesmen, shitty attorneys, and they give people a bad name, right? They give these professions a really bad name, and it's a matter of sorting through them to get to good ones. And going back to the stigma thing, it really helped though. I wasn't depressed in law school, but it helped me to adjust, right? It
Mhm.
helps with those kind of sorting through your thoughts and what your feelings are and exactly understanding who you are underneath a lot of the stuff. And that helped a lot with my self-awareness. And the other thing I would say is and just along with what we said, just to, but there's two ways to act. You're either subject to things, other things, like going back to what you said earlier about the external factors, or you're talking about things that are, hey, Andrea, thanks for joining. I appreciate it. And you're either subject to other things or you're the object of the situation where you're in control of things, right? And one situation you have control, the other one you're giving up all control, right? So which one would you rather be in? Would you rather be the active verb or rather be the passive verb? And I'm being a complete nerd because I'm talking about language arts right now, but that's okay because that's what I am. But yeah, so think about that's something I think folks could benefit from thinking about that way.